all too often, the same mistakes, and I mentioned a few of them before, but the same mistakes that are eroding your profit margins. So not just profit. I mean, you may be drowning in revenue, like amazing revenue, but then you're spending all your profits keeping your business running. But the same things eroding your profit margins are also eroding employee experience and customer experience. So if you can solve one of those mistakes, you're going to fix all.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of Engati Engage. I'm your host, Jeremy D'Souza, and today we have the wonderful Jessica Noble gracing our show with her presence. But before we begin our interview, allow me to introduce you to the magic of Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform, available across 14 channels with 25,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by Inc.com, TechWorld, CIO, and many others. We run the Engati blog, video channel, and the Engati Engage podcast, receiving upwards of 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our guest, CEO of Magnetic Experiences, Jessica has been driving business strategy and customer experience optimization and transformation throughout organizations for nearly 2 decades now. She has 15 years of experience in providing business advisory services for mid-size as well as Fortune 50 companies. The experience includes leading 5 enterprise-wide multi-year customer experience and digital transformations and facilitating hundreds of solution road mapping, journey mapping, prioritization, and strategic planning workshops over her career. She has deep expertise in professional services, SaaS, contact centers, retail, and distribution verticals. Jessica, we're very thrilled to have you with us today.
Thanks. I'm really happy to be here. And when you talk about things like low code, it is music to my ears. The whole low code revolution is one of the best things to happen in technology in a long time.
Absolutely. You don't need to be a tech genius to use stuff anymore.
I know. It takes so much of the burden off of IT, which is such a constrained resource in most companies. And so yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it gets the barrier off.
It really does.
Okay, so before we get all the inside details from Jessica, we have a quick announcement for you. We have something special for the entire audience, for all of you. So stick around till the end of the interview, and yeah, you'll get your special gift from us. Jessica, let's dive into this. Let's get this started.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So how is profit an outcome of value creation? And it's not the other way around. It has to be that way, right?
Yeah, so as you provide value, and I'll clarify that this is value from the perspective of your customer. So they have to perceive the value. You may think something that you sell, service or product, is valuable, but value being determined by your customer. And when you create that value that they perceive as value, then you're going to earn money. You're going to make money. You can set the price because there is the demand.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got to figure it out from their side of things. If something's good for them, it's good for them. You can't say that, I'm assuming this is going to be good for them, right?
Yeah, and it sounds funny when we say it out loud, but so often, and I've made the mistake myself, we have a brilliant idea and then we spend all the time building it or designing it, and then nobody wants it. And so there's so many ways to address that so you don't end up that far along. But it's key to get that feedback early and often from customers.
Yeah. And I think some of it also has to do with like we were talking about a couple of minutes ago, the whole low code thing. A lot of people make their things way too complicated to use, right?
Yeah, yes. And one of the things I've actually been talking about related to low code is when we talk about a system, and I'll pick on CRM, a customer relationship management, is like you said, it not only is people design things to be complicated, but you have one mega system that is going to meet the needs of however many departments. Yeah. Well, what if you put something low code on top that just shows this team what they need and this team what they need. And it's just such an simple and light way to simplify things based on what people need to use it for.
Yeah, they don't need to hunt through the entire platform to get to what they want to get to.
Yeah, it's just overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think the whole complication thing does result in churn and lack of adoption. So not just counting the complications, but how can we take steps as a whole to control churn, and how does this reduction lead to increased margins in the long run?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer the second part of the question first, and how does this reduction add to margins in the long run? There's 3 statistics based on a ton of research, not my research. The first one is that it's about 5 to 7 times more expensive to acquire a new customer as compared to keeping a current customer. So that right there just shows that a reduction in customer retention is going to impact margins negatively.
Yeah.
The next is increasing customer retention by just 5%, which, to use simple numbers, if you have 100 customers and you used to churn 20 of them and now you only churn 15, it increases profits by anywhere from as conservatively as 25% to 95%. Even at just 25% increase in profits, that's gigantic.
Yeah.
And then the last statistic to answer the second half of the question is that the probability of selling to a brand new customer is about 5 to 20%. So the chance that I'll close the deal. Whereas the probability of selling to an existing customer is 60 to 70%.
Mm-hmm.
So just the odds of closing 2 deals that may be similar. I mean, one of them is going to cost more to close if you even close it. And for a new sale, you don't know. For an existing one, you have a higher chance of closing it and it's less expensive. Mm-hmm. So that's the second half. That's the why we should care about reducing customer churn. And when you asked about how do we control it, this ties back into the first question about value and focusing on the customers getting the value and the most value that they expect. And a piece of that is time to value, which is one of the things about low code, and I'll tie that in a second. If you can get your customers realizing value from your product or service more quickly, that's greater value for them. When I have time savings, productivity savings, and they happen this week versus next week, I have a whole extra week of productivity savings, which makes customers perceive higher value. And in reality, they're getting more value. So just to tie it into chatbots or low code, if you can get somebody up and running on a solution in a month versus 3 months, or 9 months versus 12 months, you're automatically increasing their value. So time to value can be very important, alongside making sure they're getting max value from a solution. And what I mean by that is, since I referenced CRM, I'll refer back to it. When you implement it, a lot of times they try and implement, all the feature functions or a ton of them. And they end up using this much of the feature function. And then they just use this much for the entire life of the product for a decade or whatnot. Mm-hmm. If you could just get them to adopt 2% more, 3% more of feature functions that add to their productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness, they're getting more value from their system. Same for products. I don't know if either of you have a Vitamix, which is one of those really good blenders that can blend everything.
Yeah.
So I have a blender. If you put an apple in, it'll liquefy even the seeds in the stem. And so if I buy this product and I make smoothies with it, that's great. I'm getting value out of it. But if they can teach me how to make soups in it, I'm getting more value. If they can teach me how to make almond milk, I'm getting more value. Yeah. So it's not just for technology. It's not just for services. It's also for physical products.
Yeah, so it's like you show them what they can do with what you have.
Mm-hmm.
If they're just going to stick to one tiny thing. The moment someone comes up with something that doesn't have to, go through everything, they're just gonna leave.
Amen. Amen. And using technology, if like the chatbot function, if you're using it in one part of your business, that's good. I mean, you'll hopefully keep customers that do that. But if they're using it in 4 different ways in 7 different areas of their company,
Yeah.
a customer is so much less likely to churn if they've got your solution providing all of these pieces of value throughout their organization.
Yeah. So I think Sephora does that a lot. The makeup brand, they let you book appointments, they let you order stuff, they let you get tutorials on using it.
Yeah, I think Sephora actually was one of the front runners in the cosmetic space, and not just cosmetics, because they also do hair products and whatnot, but in terms of helping people envision what you can do with the product. And I think what they saw was there's a lot of people like me who I can put on some foundation and some lipstick, but I don't buy a lot of eye makeup because I wouldn't know what to do with it if I bought it. I mean, I'd like slap it on and it wouldn't look good. But when they teach you, then you're like, ooh, maybe I'll buy some eyeliner, some mascara, some shadow. And so they're showing you more ways to use things, and it's brilliant. And I think more companies are moving down that path.
Mhm.
But for the 10 companies you see doing that, there's still 20 that aren't.
Absolutely. Well, the companies that are doing that, it's better off for them right now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, moving on to my next question for you. Employee experience, I'm sure it drives customer experience. You can't have a great customer experience while treating your employees horribly, right? So how do you fix employee experience to get an amazing superlative customer experience?
Yes, so I do agree with you, although I would actually nuance it a little bit different, or nitpick, some people might say. Employee and customer experience, absolutely, they drive each other. But I would say even below that, culture and leadership drive both.
Yeah.
If you don't have effective leadership and effective culture, you're not going to have either of those. So the reason I bring that up is if you're attempting to fix, let's say, customer experience or to improve it, but you don't have the underpinnings of strong leadership and a healthy culture, you're fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah.
The other thing I would call out is employee experience and customer experience. They feed into each other. So you're either going to create one of two things: a vicious cycle where they're both feeding each other, they're infecting each other negatively. Employee experience is infecting customer experience, and then you have more customers that are upset, which is a drain on employees, and it just gets worse. Or you can have the reverse, which is what I refer to as a virtuous cycle, where you have employee experience invigorating customer experience, which then the more, I mean, if you work for Zappos and you've got happy customers all day because they think you're great and you're empowered to do your job, then you're going to then be more invigorated, great experience. So you can't treat one without the other, because if you just focus on employee experience, but you're not actually fixing how much value you're providing to customers, it's an uphill battle. You're creating these empowered employees, but they're going to have frustrated customers all day who are disappointed. So looking at it comprehensively is key. Tucked in there was one of the things that I would say to focus on for fixing, and that is looking at how do you enable your employees, and a key piece of enablement is technology. And then how do you empower employees to do the right thing for customers? And how you do that depends on their role, depends on their background, their experience. So you may have certain teams that you empower a great deal, and others where they're more confined by a very narrow set of things they do for customers.
Yeah.
But enabling is key. And I actually have a book coming out in like 2 weeks that I get on a soapbox on this about technology. If you don't enable your employees with effective technology, they are going to run around the building trying to make up for the gaps in technology or whatever that is. And they may still provide a pretty good experience to customers.
Yeah.
But they've just wasted a ton of time running around the building, and it's frustrating because they're kind of they're acting as the duct tape between, you know, this gap in not great technology, and the customer kind of gets what they want, but it probably takes longer because it's going to take longer for me to run around the building getting them what they need than if I had effective technology to just do it.
Yeah.
And kind of real world examples, because that people are like, I don't run around the building. You kind of do when you trade 45 emails with people internally to find out what's the status of a return, where's a credit memo, those, you know, what's the status of the field tech coming on site, all those types of things, the relay of information.
Yeah.
You check with 12 people and you get it, and the customer, they finally get their answer, but they had to wait while you heard back from 12 people. So that's the kind of running around the building. Just so ineffective. So that's the enablement piece, and then the empowering. And to add on to that, kind of a secret weapon to understand what customers value, which we were talking about earlier. Talk to your employees, especially the ones that are talking to and interfacing with customers all day long.
Yeah.
They know, those frontline employees know your customers better than anybody. And so you can, you know, send out all the surveys to your customers, but I would challenge people to talk to your frontline employees first, and then you can go and validate what you're hearing and glean more and deeper insights directly with customers, rather than starting with customers saying, do you like our product? And they're like, actually, I've submitted 35 tickets and I hate your product, but you should already know that. And they have to repeat themselves, which I don't know about you, but there's nothing I hate more than when I'm working with a company, I have to keep repeating my complaint over and over. And
Absolutely. That's the digital equivalent of going to a government office and running to 50,000 different people to get one thing done. There's so much bureaucracy over there.
Yeah. I could tell 1,000 stories. Nobody wants to hear them because we all have our own of living through that.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. You speak about the 5 mistakes that you don't know you're making to drive your customer away. Could you talk about these mistakes a bit?
Yeah. So the mistakes are very, very common. And I would venture to say they are almost virtually in every quick growing, fast growing mid-sized business. So a business that's, you know, anywhere from double-digit $1 million to triple-digit $1 million, if you're going through periods of pretty substantial revenue growth, you're making these mistakes. I'm not going to bet $1 because there might be a lot of people listening, but I would venture to guess they're making these mistakes. And so I'll just talk briefly about a couple of them. The first one is being in denial. And this is one of the hardest ones because these companies are also the ones, a lot of them were founded to be customer centric. So they want to keep their customers. However, what happens is the experience that I provided when I was a bit smaller was one thing, and it was great. It's how I got all this revenue growth. But that experience isn't going to be the same experience I provide today when I've got a team that's double the size. I don't care what you're doing. It's not going to be the same because you're going to incrementally add, whether it's systems, processes, people, to scale. And each time we add a system, a process, or people to scale, we're not rethinking the experience or reassessing it. And so we lose touch with what does that experience feel like. And we live in denial. And what happens is the customer ends up being the one to feel all of these gaps, overlaps, etc., in your experience. So when you add channels, you add social media channels, or you add a self-service portal or chatbots, and they're the ones that are going to feel the pain. And you may not, and when you hear it and you hear their complaints, unfortunately, a lot of times our instinct is to say, our customers are so high maintenance, they're never going to be happy.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, okay, there's got to be a little bit of a morsel of truth here. So that's one piece, is the living in denial and not acknowledging that it's not the same. And so the next is focusing on too many things. So too many, whether it's internal projects, too many products, too many services, and kind of trying to be all things to all people. And that lack of focus is horrible. You dilute everything you're doing, and you see it with so many companies. I worked with a SaaS company recently, and their cornerstone product is phenomenal. They have spun up more products in the last 5 years, and those products are not phenomenal. They're the opposite of phenomenal. And so that tarnishes their brand, even though their original product is bar none the best out there. So another mistake, and again, I see a lot / most customers making it, is not focusing on your ideal customer. So you forget that my ideal customer is, let's say it's mid-sized businesses. For me, I work with mid-sized businesses today. I don't work with Fortune 500 companies anymore. I don't enjoy it. It's not my sweet spot.
Too much red tape.
Yeah. And so when you see companies trying to be all things to all people, that gets really expensive. And the analogy, and I'll combine this with another mistake, which is the experience you're providing when it's not brand aligned. And what I mean by that is, if you do you guys have IKEA?
Yeah, we just got IKEA.
Yeah. So IKEA, amazing. Great meatballs, great furniture. And then if you pick like Neiman Marcus, you guys have Neiman Marcus?
I don't think we have it right here.
Okay. So like a really high-end department store for fancy people. If you walked into IKEA and it was super fancy and everyone was waiting on you hand and foot, and so you're getting, top-notch service, and then you look at the price tags and it's top-notch prices, you're not going to be happy with your experience. You went into IKEA, you want some meatballs, and you want to go pick up some furniture you'll put together yourself for a great price. Same if you walk into the amazing high-end department store and you get IKEA, not service. You've got to go down to the warehouse to pick up your furniture, and so both of those are great experiences. But when it's not aligned with people's expectations and your brand, there's a mismatch. And so that's what it's like when you are spending your time trying to meet the needs of all types of customers. Is for some of your customers, it may be a great experience. But for the customers on the periphery, it's not like they're thinking, well, I'm not their ideal customer, so it's okay that I don't totally love my experience. And I know I have been that customer where I'm like, I bet you I'm not their ideal customer. But that doesn't make me love them more. I'm still paying and I expect what I want, how I want it. And so you get into this trying to do all things and unhappy customers, when if you just focused on your sweet spot, you'd be better off.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm going to kind of tie that one in to chatbots. Because I think this is one area where things like chatbots can get a really bad rap. So let's say we went into a nursing home, a senior living facility, and now if they needed service, like a light bulb changed, or they wanted their dinner changed, but now we're rolling it out, they can only do that by a chatbot. Well, that's not my area. I don't work in assisted senior living, but my parents are in their 70s, and I would suggest that's probably not the best place to be rolling that out. And so when you aren't thinking about how does this serve this audience, then it's a mistake. Whereas when you deploy chatbots in the right way, like Amazon in most cases, although I had a horrible experience with a chatbot recently, Amazon, it's actually the rules they set up for their chatbot. But when you do it there, it's phenomenal. I can get what I want done. I don't have to talk to someone, wait for someone,
Yeah.
etc.
So yeah, you can't automate every single thing. To automate the right things,
Amen. Preach it.
you need a human for some things. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and I think people just get too excited sometimes about the capabilities of technology and they go overboard.
So you have to pick the right things to automate. That's my understanding of this entire thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so speaking about picking the right things of the right things to automate, how do you think bots can be a smart investment? What advantages do you think they bring in? They should businesses consider using them more?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to tie this into the current point in time. And then I can answer it more broadly if we want. I did a blog on this actually, I don't know, maybe a month ago. Right now, in the middle of this very fascinating time with this little beast of a virus,
Mm-hmm.
there are companies who are what I refer to as jugglers. So, when you juggle. So I put companies into three categories. You have jugglers, you have strugglers, and you have front runners. The jugglers, from my perspective, are the ones that have more business than they've ever had. The distribution centers, the Amazons, shipping and delivery, some of the emergency rooms, protective equipment and protective gear. Those types of companies are jugglers. And so when I think about technology like chatbots, what I tell people is they're phenomenal for jugglers because you can't hire people fast enough to expand your capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the people were all sitting around that were capable, it's just you can't do it fast enough. And so one of the best things you can do is to automate the repetitive routine tasks to free up capacity of your existing teams. So take those more routine, whether it's questions or actions, and set up a chatbot to take that off their plate so that you can then deploy these human beings with unique and more robust skill sets to then handle, like you said, the things that really need a human involved. And so in this point in time for those companies, I always say look at it through the lens of where you can free up the most productivity from your team or for your team by deploying a chatbot.
I never thought about it like that. The jugglers and everything. That's a really good idea.
Yeah. So the other two strugglers are the ones who really they're struggling with cash flow. So probably the last thing they're going to look at is more technology. They're trying to figure out how do I keep the lights on.
Yeah.
The other group, though, I would call front runners, and they're the people who maybe their business has declined a little bit, maybe it's declined a lot, but they're using this period of time to accomplish something strategic. So when they do see business ramp back up, they've tackled something and they're going to emerge ahead of the pack. So they're the front runners. And so this is where they can be looking at things like, how do we better serve our customers, especially if they have customers who appreciate self-service. Okay, let's look at chatbots. Or is there a way to enable our team members with simplified solutions or simplified interfaces with low code? And so they're looking more strategically to use this time to rethink employee experience, customer experience, and how we enable that.
Yeah, they're laying the foundations right now. That's what I think. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's exactly it.
Okay. So this was a brilliant thought. Do you have any other wonderful nuggets of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience?
I will just say the one thing that I would leave people with, and this is kind of a shameless plug for my book, but not real. I mean, it is, but all too often the same mistakes, and I mentioned a few of them before, but the same mistakes that are eroding your profit margins. So not just profit. I mean, you may be drowning in revenue, like amazing revenue, but then you're spending all your profits keeping your business running. But the same things eroding your profit margins are also eroding employee experience and customer experience. So if you can solve one of those mistakes, you're going to fix all three of those things or improve them just by addressing those. And the book is 5 mistakes, again, to reverse margin erosion and at the same time improve employee and customer experience. And I get super passionate about this because if you don't address it, all 3 of those are a downward spiral. If you address the mistakes, you get the same momentum, but in the reverse, in the positive, improving profit margins, which is what most companies, all companies, should want. And it's not that complicated. I didn't say it was easy, but it's not complicated.
Yeah, so like one thing just shifts gears, puts you in reverse, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's really about removing inefficiencies, focusing on delivering what is most valuable to customers, those types of things. And so often it's what we were doing, but then with growth, it just kind of, you got a little bit more off the track and you just don't realize. I used an analogy the other day and someone told me, she's like, that's a horrible analogy for people who like animals. And I have 3 animals, but that frog in boiling water analogy, I don't know if you've heard it, where if I put, a frog in water and just gradually turn the temperature up, he's not going to know when to jump out because he doesn't know when it's unsafe because it's so slow. Yeah. And I know I just talked about murdering a frog, which is horrible. But I didn't turn the heat up on him. I just used it as an example. But it's the same with the profit margin erosion, is you don't notice it until all of a sudden you're like, oh no, this is, because it was gradual.
Yeah. Okay, so when is the book coming out? When can people find that silver bullet line all these 5,000?
Yeah, so it'll be out next month. And from my website, I'm not charging for it. I thought about it, but during times like we're in right now, I am so passionate about mid-sized businesses that I just want people to be able to get their businesses where they can maximize their profits and their profit margins, because we know that business has fallen off for so many of them, and this is about survival for many. Especially if this goes on. And so via my website, Magnetic Experiences, it'll be next month. But yeah, I'm excited, and it's short. I have a short attention span, so it's like 70 pages, 75 pages.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. So, guys, I'm sure you're gonna love the book. Absolutely. So I told you that we have an announcement for you, and it's along the same lines as Jessica's announcement just now. We also have a free ebook for you on the evolution of customer experience. Go ahead, download it. Like Jessica said, even this one is pretty short. It's like 17 pages or so. So yeah, you can find it in the resources section of www.engati.com, or you can go to www.engati.com/ebook, and you'll find it there. We'll have it linked in the description below. So yeah, this has been wonderful, Jessica. This has been really enlightening.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm actually, is the book out there now? Because I'm going there to download the ebook.
Sure, 100%. I'll send you a link.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so everyone, I'm sure you want to find out where you can get Jessica, where you can interact with her. So yeah, reach out to her on LinkedIn, follow her on Twitter. She has a lot of insights to share with you. So go for it. And Engati Engage will definitely be back with a new episode and a new expert really soon. So stay tuned, guys. We'll see you around for the next one.